Today, for our one question, we have a very special guest, someone who is the executive director of the Open Markets Institute. It's an organization that uses research and journalism to expose the dangers of monopoly. And we have a podcast on this, lots of things that affect average person, and it's worth following. And their executive director is Barry Lynn. Barry, thanks so much for being with us.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you, Barry. So my question for you is, if you could change any one law, you have the ability to, you don't have to go through Congress just because you're Barry, you have the ability to do that. What would be the one federal law or change you would make, and why would you do it?
That's a great question. And I'm going to start off by saying I actually don't think we need to change any laws. But then that actually will help Congress understand what a couple of the laws that you might focus on.
Yeah.
So the reason that we actually don't have to change any laws is because the United States has so many great anti-monopoly laws already. So it's like we have our body of anti-monopoly law properly understood. It's not just the Sherman Antitrust Act, which was put in place in 1890. Not just the Interstate Commerce Act of 1887, but the whole body of laws that are built into the constitutional structure. And going back to the founding, when there was this idea, everybody is created equal, and then you create with the establishment of the Constitution, which is designed to break concentrations of power. We're seeing that being put to the test now, but it is, up to a certain point, it's showing how it does break concentrations of power. So the constitutional structure, plus the body of laws, plus the goal, plus the body of laws that were established over the course of 2 centuries in the United States, it's a fantastic and unrivaled body of laws that allow us to shape our liberty, shape our prosperity, shape our democracy, protect ourselves against all concentration of power and control, all manipulation. The reason that we haven't used this well is because of we embraced a different kind of ideology. Going back to the early days of Reagan, the early days of President Clinton, when we embraced neoliberal ideology, that ideology was aimed precisely to destroy our understanding of how to use anti-monopoly law.
Right.
So 200 years, we kept ourselves free.
Yep.
For 40 years, we have marched into control.
Yeah.
We have made it easy for other people to concentrate power. So the only thing that changed, it wasn't the law, it was how we see the law. So to fix it, and we've already done this, if you see the law differently, you will use the law differently. Every single problem we have today, we have a law that's designed to fix that problem. So, but if Congress wanted to actually do something, the most important thing to do to reawaken our understanding of what these existing laws are meant to achieve, is to push for absolute non-discrimination in online. You have to online corporations, Google, Facebook, Amazon, et cetera, they have to treat everybody the exact same. There's no favoritism, no censorship. Everybody is treated the same, and that means there's no amplification. Then there's no suppression of anybody. What you do is you turn the platform into a place where people are in control. Put people back in control of the internet.
Yep.
Almost every single political, economic problem we face today goes away.
Wow. I like that. So maybe instead of the law change, we just need some reinforcement and maybe funds for people who need to do the good work and look at it with a different mindset.
Absolutely. Yeah. So and we're close. We're actually, it's strangely, we're closer than one might think, because we've developed so much of this analysis over the last 10 years, and we actually have real victories to show from the last 5, 6, 7 years.
No, that's great, Barry. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Great to see you, and see you soon.
Yep. Thank you. So this week I have an extra special guest because this isn't just one of my best colleagues in Congress, but this is one of my mentors. One of the reasons why I'm in Congress, why I do the work I do, why I'm on appropriations and have always focused on where we invest our money. And I am here with my amazing colleague, Representative Gwen Moore from the 4th District of Wisconsin. And I'm going to introduce her in just a second, but this is a special episode because we're taping it live from Washington on the first day of the shutdown, October 1st, to talk about the shutdown, but maybe also a bunch of the bluntly BS that the Republicans are putting out there. And I know of no one that can cut through BS better than my good friend and colleague, Gwen Moore. Gwen, thanks so much for being here today on our podcast.
Well, Mark, have you determined whether or not the Wisconsin Democratic Caucus from Wisconsin has?
We're in full attendance. We're in full attendance today, aren't we?
Yeah. We're laughing, but this is not funny. I know that you and I both have really worked very hard to try to prevent this shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, it cost millions, maybe even billions of dollars to close the government down and to reopen it. You know, it's not a frivolous thing. And, you know, there are many people, particularly people who are employees of the federal government, people who depend on services from the federal government who are going to suffer. And we're very mindful of that.
Mm-hmm.
We get blamed. The Republicans are blaming us for their shutdown.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Because we didn't vote for their one big, beautiful bill. But I think a significant amount of people are going to suffer from that. The 15 million people who are going to be cut off. Okay, 15 million at a minimum. We're not even counting all the other people who receive health care through their employers that don't have to worry about Medicaid, in particular the ACA, but even their premiums are going to go up through their employers.
Exactly. So let's start with the fact that you and I are in Washington. I'm looking at you. We're here in town. But you know what? I don't think another one of our Republican colleagues from Wisconsin's here, and the Republican House caucus isn't here. The Senate, Democrats and Republicans are here. We were supposed to be here, but the Republican leadership in the House canceled session, right?
Well, yeah, they should have gotten something done before now. I mean, they are making the excuse that it is now one of the high holy days of Yom Kippur. That they can't keep the government open, but they could have done it yesterday, and the high holidays don't even start until tonight. So we had all day today to fix things, but there was not a willingness to do that. Most likely because the president of the United States doesn't want to negotiate, doesn't want to do the art of the deal, as he claims that he's so capable of doing. They don't want to give in on recognizing the severe, it's not just that they're creating a problem for the Affordable Care Act recipients or Medicaid, they're destroying the entire healthcare system. It's been predicted that a minimum of $25 billion a year it's going to cost hospitals and hospital systems in uncompensated care. And they just seem, I guess they don't care.
Yeah. No, and so what the fight is about, very clearly, what Democrats are saying, why you and I are here in Washington and they should be here and they're not as we shut down government, is we're fighting for the 15 million people that are going to potentially lose health insurance, who are on Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act. We're fighting against the $500 billion cut that's going to be triggered to Medicare, which everyone will be impacted by. We know, we're being told the increases in healthcare will be felt by everyone, because when people lose healthcare, They go to the hospital is still going to provide the care, but it's got to be paid for somehow. And we're all going to pick that price up. And we're fighting for those rural hospitals, especially in places like Wisconsin, that already are struggling to get by. And this is going to make it only worse. In Eau Claire, Wisconsin, where our dear friend Derek Van Orden represents, they had 2 hospitals and they both closed down in a city of 67,000 people. We're fighting for that. And that message is pretty clear. You know, I don't know about you, Gwen, but I've had 35 calls from Saturday to this morning about the shutdown, because as you know, even though it has very big impacts, it's not always felt immediately back home unless someone's calling a federal agency today and not getting through, and eventually they'll feel it more. But this year, I've had 14,435 contacts about healthcare from my district alone. So what people care about is, can they afford their rent or mortgage? Do they have healthcare for their family? And what the Republicans did is going to take that away. So we're here saying, the Democrats are saying the fight is about healthcare, not any of the other BS that they're putting out there.
And that's true, Mike. You know, and what they are offering in return, the Republicans, is propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you talked about housing being yet another thing that people are affected by.
Yeah.
You know, the inflation with groceries, healthcare, housing, and I just happened to click on the HUD website.
Mm-hmm.
There's this propaganda saying that the far left is shutting the government down on an official website of the government.
Yeah.
Propaganda.
Yeah.
You know, but the propaganda does not erase the reality and the facts on the ground. I think that they were too clever by half, and you know, as an appropriator, that they timed the cuts for Medicaid after the 2026 election,
Yes.
thinking that was going to get them through the next election cycle without people noticing. But of course, them not being hospital administrators, not being experts, they were too clever by half to realize that health institutions have to make decisions now.
Mm-hmm.
Health insurance premiums, the premium updates are going out today, the beginning of November. People who are sitting at their jobs, at their so-called good, safe jobs, are going to hear from HR saying, you know, your share of your healthcare premium is going to go up. And you would think that they'd be able to regroup quickly, but it is their arrogance, their desire to fund the one big beautiful bonanza for billionaires,
Mm-hmm.
that is preventing them from caring about the people, you know, that they represent. They have in so many ways hollowed out the middle class. And so now they're just rich people and the rest of us.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, thank you for saying it, because we should have said it at the start, the 30,000 foot. This is about tax breaks for the donors, the wealthiest folks, the donor class, the Elon Musk and Donald Trump, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg and company. And you do that tax break that they did in the big ugly law by taking money from healthcare. And that's why 15 million people are losing healthcare. It's because they needed that money to pay for the tax breaks for billionaires and the donors of the Republican Party.
Exactly. And you know, like I said, all you got to do, I mean, it's on paper.
Mm-hmm.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
And what you said about people getting their rates, we know, I think in Wisconsin, it's by October 17th. Everyone's supposed to get their notice. And the Kaiser Foundation said, at least in my district, if you're a 60-year-old couple making $85,000 a year, your increase on the Affordable Care Act could be as high as $16,000 extra next year, over $1,000 a month more for health insurance. And that means a lot of people aren't going to have health insurance because they can't afford it.
Exactly. And one of the things that the Affordable Care Act did is that enabled people to get out of so-called job lock, that
Hmm.
they were able to be entrepreneurs. They were able to move from one job to the next. One of my own granddaughters, went out on her own, left her good government job to start her own business.
Hmm.
And now she is just quaking in her boots to see what her silver plan is going to be increased to.
Yeah.
And she is not looking forward to that notice that you're talking about.
Yeah. And so that's the reality, and that's what we're fighting. But let's talk a little bit about, as you said, the myths the Republicans are putting out there. And, it doesn't even seem to be credible, but we know some folks in MAGA world will believe anything. But for the rest of the normal people, let's talk a little bit about what they're saying. They're saying we want over $1 trillion of new spending to give health care to, their words, illegal aliens. That's pure BS, right?
Well, don't forget, not only the illegal aliens,
Mm-hmm.
but the young white boys that are sitting in their basement
Yeah.
playing video games, hollering up the stairs for their mama to bring them some more chips. Well, if that's the case, we must have 276,000 plus people in Wisconsin who are sitting in their basement, or either they're undocumented people. That's just not true. These are real people.
Yeah.
We know them. They're our relatives, they're our constituents, they're our friends. They are people that we represent. And it's not just people, in Madison and Milwaukee and urban areas. It's not just the rural people outside of Eau Claire. It is everybody,
Mm-hmm.
from the poorest to the poor. Medicaid, 46% of Medicaid is spent on people in nursing homes. Your
Yeah.
grandmother,
Yep.
and paying for nursing homes is a mandatory expense under Medicaid. So what that means is that state legislators, and we were both in the state legislature, they're going to have really hard decisions to make. They're going to have to decide, stuff that is not mandatory, like, will people be able to stay at home and get home health services?
Mm-hmm.
Will people be able to get rides to their dialysis treatment? Will children be able to get monies for behavioral health? We've already seen that Planned Parenthood is shutting down services because of the one big beautiful bill and its consequences. Community health centers. You remember when the Doge Boys hit Washington, D.C., one of the first consequences of their activity was to close the portal to community health centers. And so, so this is not a small thing.
Well,
Medicaid pays for thousands of meals every day in Milwaukee. Everybody will be hurt. Not to mention the professionals that work in healthcare. Their jobs are on the line.
mm-hmm.
Can you imagine numbers of certified nursing assistants getting laid off, and nurses having to 1 minute put your IV in, and the second minute having to bring you the pot for you to sit on, to give you a bath? We're going to wear out our healthcare staff as they try to do multiple jobs.
Yeah.
And don't mention, again, those nursing homes, staffing ratios are going to increase, and people are not going to get good care in nursing homes.
Yeah, and that, a lot of people don't know, was in that law either. But the fact that they're saying $1 trillion, we want to fight for healthcare for, again, their words, illegal aliens, not only for all the reasons you said why we have to provide healthcare for people in this country, but it's also completely blatantly not true. Not one dime of federal dollars goes to an undocumented person through Medicare, Medicaid, or the Affordable Care Act. What they're arguing is either that some states provide health care for people who are non-citizens, but that's not federal dollars. Those are state dollars. Or they're arguing about some emergency funds that goes to the emergency room of a hospital could happen to go to someone who's not a citizen. But it is a complete lie to say that this $1 trillion of healthcare is for undocumented people. It is for our grandmas, our uncles, our neighbors, the kids that we have in school. Like, this is money for people from Wisconsin. So it is a complete lie that any money, federal dollars, are going towards Medicare, Medicaid, or the Affordable Care Act. And we just need to call that out.
Well, Mark, really, they've done polling, and the polling has told them that a lot of people are on board with their message about people who are in this country undocumented illegally. And so they just will lie about it with impunity because they think that sticks. But I want to reassure you that people are getting sick of that.
Yeah.
Because they were told that we're going to deport criminals, people belonging to gangs. And boy, they didn't know that Auntie was going to be deported. They didn't know, like, and that people who have been here for 40 years, never committed a crime, not so much as even jaywalking, are being deported, and so that they can get their numbers up. People are sick and tired of that. People are tired of hearing about, you remember what happened with the Koreans, the South Koreans who were here with Hyundai.
Yep.
I mean, very high valued employees providing technical services, marched out like criminals. People are beginning to get that this is a lie and a real overreach.
Now, this is another myth the Republicans are saying, and I saw Derek Van Orden from Wisconsin loves to put this out. He's tweeted it many times. Of course, he is a very vociferous tweeter, but he is saying that we are going to take away $50 billion from rural hospitals. What he's not telling you is the only reason there's $50 billion for rural hospitals is because they cut Medicaid by $1 trillion. And this is going to cover a small portion of what rural hospitals are going to lose. So we're saying the gashing wound that they put a Band-Aid on, they're saying, oh, you're going to take away the Band-Aid. We're saying, let's take away the gashing wound.
Wow, that $50 billion was payoff to Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska to get her vote for the one big beautiful bill, else it would not have passed. And she knows better than anybody that $50 billion is not going to help the people outside of Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I mean, she's going to get the lion's share of that money for her vote. And that $50 billion is not going to cover rural hospitals at all. They're going to be shut down, just like we're shut down now. People's maternity wards are going to be closed. People are going to close down their cath labs. People are going to have a heart attack, and they're going to have to, instead of going 10 miles to the hospital, they're going to have to go 30 miles, and they're going to be dead by the time they get there.
Yep, that's the risks. So another thing they're saying is, look, we've supported other continuing resolutions. Again, something only, the swamp in Washington loves to talk about. What's a continuing resolution to a real person? But they're saying we're being hypocrites. But what they're not telling you is this is not a clean funding continuation like we've supported in the past, because last December we had an agreement with Republicans and they went against their agreement. And then in March, there was another agreement. And then the president did rescission, stole funding away that Democrats and Republicans jointly, bipartisanly agreed to, and Republicans did nothing. So now this locks in two different broken negotiations of cut funds, and now they're saying we're being disingenuous. Well, who's being disingenuous?
Well, Mark, I'll tell you, the basic element of any relationship is trust.
Yeah.
Whether it's husband, wife, student, teacher, legislator to legislator.
Mhm.
And I mean, we saw, hundreds of millions of dollars of bills of stuff already appropriated, already agreed upon, already signed into law. And they just clawed that money back, and made Congress irrelevant. We don't have any guarantees. That's one of the things we're asking for. Where's the guarantee that once we vote for your clean CR, that this is not going to be, the subject content of yet another rescissions package? There's no trust here, because they, as you have pointed out very eloquently, that they have not been trustworthy. They have not been honest.
Well, and this is Russ Vogt, the Director of Office of Management and Budget within the White House, who is the chief architect of Project 2025. They put this out there in their 900 page document, and now they're doing this. And if you can't, as you said, I mean, the trust is at the basic. You have an agreement, but you don't have an agreement if then another co-equal branch of government steals the funds that the Constitution gave Congress the authority to do. Well, of course, that's going to cause problems. And the Republicans are acting as if history doesn't matter.
Well, yeah. And I think, what was this old saying? That if you're ignorant of history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
And people are busy. People are not sitting around studying history, Mark. They're living their lives. They're struggling with the increased prices of groceries. The rent is too damn high everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Many renters in Wisconsin are paying 50% or more of whatever income they have on rent. People can't get a mortgage at an affordable rate. People are really, really suffering. And so, the propaganda that the Republicans own all of the news media. We need to point that out.
Yeah,
Meta,
right.
X, and the Wall Street Journal and Fox News and so on. And so people say, why don't you tell us these things? And I'm so glad for your podcast, Mark, because we have very few official avenues to teach people, and Republicans, like I said, they're using official websites to spread their propaganda. And so this is what we're fighting against. We're fighting against the propaganda and the lies. And so here we are at a Republican shutdown.
Yep.
And they just want us to shut up and vote for their mess.
Yeah, and they're claiming that we're hurting veterans, but what they don't tell you is they were willing to do the shutdown to use veterans as a bargaining chip, and we've been told 600,000 veterans will see their healthcare premiums skyrocket if we don't extend those healthcare tax credits. So for them to even pretend that somehow we're doing something against people who serve this country, when in reality they're the ones harming them, we have to call them out.
You remember when they sort of clawed back the money for the burn pits?
Yes.
Remember that, Mark?
Yep.
These people who are just in love with veterans. Do you remember early on in the Doge process, they were firing veterans? I mean, they fired people at the Milwaukee Zablocki Center, one of our storied VA centers, one of the first 4 civil rights. The civil, I can call it the civil rights, but it's the Civil War institutions founded during Abraham Lincoln's time.
Yeah.
A story. They were willing to take away from that. And I have spoken to doctors and people who work there. They don't have the appropriate equipment. They have short staffing, while the Department of War, as it's been renamed, and you're an appropriator, I'm telling the truth. Yeah. They have more money than they could possibly spend. I mean, even to the point that we can give, $50 billion to Argentina. But veterans, they have to walk around with a tin cup
Yeah.
to get the services that they need.
Yeah. Well, and they're saying that by doing this, we're forcing thousands of civil service employees to be fired. Well, first of all, we didn't do the shutdown; they did the shutdown, but they could be furloughed, and they will get their pay. That's how it has always happened. However, Project 2025 is very clear that they want to fire hundreds of thousands of federal employees. So I think the reason Donald Trump isn't taking this seriously, the reason the Republicans from the House aren't here, is they just want to blame someone for what they already wrote in Project 2025, and they are going to fire federal employees under the guise of this. But this has been their intention, and luckily they wrote it down in Project 25 for us all to see.
They absolutely did. And, you know, our last failsafe, the courts have been very, very good.
Yes.
At trying to stop some of this. But the Supreme Court of the United States, the Roberts Court, seems all too willing to allow them to carry out this massacre of public service. Mark, you know, what we have said to people, we need to have a lot more Jimmy Kimmel moments.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
What that showed us, and it should show people who are watching this podcast, is that we have power. This is what democracy looks like. All of us have to push back. We can't just call up Mark Pocan and say, what are you doing? All of us have got to push back.
Gwen, that is so important, because that was maybe the single best point in this that people should look at, that we have that power and we can push back so much more. People organically, no group can take credit for the people who called up Disney and Hulu and ESPN and canceled their subscriptions when that happened. And because people took action, they had to bring Jimmy Kimmel back. And guess what? He went on TV that night and went after the president, the highest level person, I think, in media to do that. It wasn't all the tech folks coming to the White House and groveling to the president because they want tax breaks. It was the people fought back, won, and Jimmy Kimmel gave them the verbal finger that night. And that is what we can keep doing.
And you know, President Trump has declared many times that the people want a dictator.
No.
It's up to us to disprove that.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to recap the shutdown, so people understand. I mean, you're going to start seeing it more and more back home. Right now, you won't see it maybe on day one, unless you're calling up the IRS or Social Security. You might have a hard time getting through, but you're going to see it more and more. It does have big economic impacts throughout the country by having this happen. But this is happening because the Republicans aren't here this week. The president canceled the meeting last week with Democratic leaders because he wasn't serious about getting a deal done. This isn't about getting $1 trillion for undocumented people, because that's pure BS. We've proved that. This isn't about doing something that's going to be just what we've done previously, extending funding the way we always have, because this is at least 2 broken agreements of reduced funding that hurts the people in your district and my district. And at the end of the day, you know, healthcare is one of the most quintessential things for any family. And we're fighting not just for the 15 million people who are going to lose that healthcare, but for everyone who's going to be paying more, on top of paying more for energy costs because they took away some of the credits for wind and solar, who are paying more for durable goods like they're going to at the holidays, paying more for groceries because the president hasn't done anything other than tariffs that are really a tax on all of us. And you and I are just here to try to let people know that's why we're in Washington. That's what's going on. And we will take on any Republican head to head who wants to have this fight.
That's exactly right. And, you know, just back to what our poor state legislators, you know, we can't forget them. We came from that body. You know, they have some serious choices to make. You know, right now, Badger Care is available to people that at 100% of the poverty level. 100% of the poverty level, and we all know that 100% of the poverty level is the very, very poor. If we were to decide to give Medicaid to people up to 138% of the poverty level, um, the federal match could go up. But unless we have the funds in the state coffers to fund that, we would lose over $1 billion in federal funds made available through ARPA to be able to do that. It's not a clear shot at taking care of people.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of my favorite things, just going back to the big ugly law, when they passed it, the state legislature was racing to get a budget done to save that $1 billion. And they did save that $1 billion. And then you had Republicans in Wisconsin, members of Congress, at least Derek Van Orden, I can't speak for others, say that he saved the state $1 billion. No, you caused the problem that would have cost us $1 billion. And fortunately, Governor Evers figured out a way to save that money. And
I got phone calls while we were sitting here waiting. Yeah. I think were it not for Hakeem's Jeffrey long speech, we would not have beat the state legislature in their negotiations. I was getting calls around midnight from the leadership in the Wisconsin Assembly saying, well, I mean, don't they, isn't it true that the rules say that you have to have 72 hours? And I said, look, they're going to waive all of that.
Right.
You better hurry up and pass that bill for the provider's tax now, ASAP. And but for Hakeem's Jeffrey long soliloquy, Wisconsin would not have been able to lock in the 6% provider payment.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this is a short-lived shutdown, that the Republicans come back to the table and work on something to help consumers on healthcare, because they've already created the problem. Now we've got to fix it as Congress together. But do you have any predictions? You've been in Congress longer than me, Gwen, and I've been through a few of these now shutdowns, but any predictions on what to be looking for next?
Well, I think we ought to be looking for some hope. Yeah. Because this is still a democracy. And we have seen Republicans be shaky. We have seen them vote for the big ugly bill and then decide to retire, which indicates to me that they do have a conscience. So, somewhere along the line, we were just asking some of them to just be human beings. Be human beings. There's some humanness that might emerge in all this. What I would say to Donald Trump, if I had access to him, is that, hey, you say that you're the master of the deal, that you can create the art of the deal. Here's your moment, brother.
Yeah.
Here's your moment. You can go down in history as saving the lives of millions of people in the United States. Because without health, nothing else matters.
Yeah.
Nothing else matters. You have nothing if you don't have good health.
Well, maybe you'll get invited to Mar-a-Lago, so you can.
Not really my cup of tea.
Mine neither.
Just like I don't want to go to the Riviera on the Mediterranean in Gaza. I'm just not interested.
I am guessing
and his brand of entertainment.
I am guessing Mar-a-Lago is so garish and so over the top and so unbelievable.
It's like the gold in the Oval Office. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ugly.
Oh my God. It's embarrassing is what it is. I mean, if your role models are, the leaders of countries that are run by despots and authoritarians, it's just
right.
It's a sad time. The
North Korea and I mean, best friends with Putin and Netanyahu. I mean, you're judged by the company you keep.
Yes.
when you're getting love letters from Kim Jong-un, you gotta ask people, what the hell does he care about you?
Yes. Yes. Now, again, I think let's end this way, because I think what you brought up, we need to just say again, was the Jimmy Kimmel moment. People on their own, organized by no group, no elected official, no one but people on their own. When they heard what happened to Jimmy Kimmel, they called up and canceled their Disney, Hulu, and ESPN subscriptions. And Disney lost $4 billion of value in less than a few days because people did something. And because of that, they had to bring Jimmy Kimmel back. And then Jimmy Kimmel gave the verbal middle finger to the president, what every person wishes they could do when he's taking away their health care or anything else that he's taken away. And we need to celebrate what we did and what we kind of keep needing to do at this moment.
Well, look ahead. No King's Day. The next one is October 18th. And that's an opportunity all around Wisconsin. And we showed up the last time. That's an opportunity for everybody around the country to figure out, how can I make a difference? And, you know, as Coretta Scott King, the late, great Loretta Scott King, widow of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., said, it is the responsibility of every single generation to fight for our rights. No pointing fingers at the boomers and saying, y'all need to do something. Young people, it is up to you to join everybody in defeating this totalitarian regime.
Yep. And October 18th, the last No Kings in June, I was in Dodgeville, Wisconsin, and we had 400 to 500 people lining the streets in Iowa County. The whole county has 22,000 people, Gwen, in my district, and 400 or 500 of them lined the streets. And that happened in Baraboo in my district, and it happened in Monroe and all these other communities. So you're right. That is the next moment for all of us to show that we want a government that actually works for us.
Thank you so much, my friend. I love you madly.
Well, same back at you.
You know, and I moved that the meeting of the Wisconsin Democratic Caucus now be ended.
That is Gwen Moore, the amazing representative from Wisconsin's 4th District. And someday I'm going to talk, we're going to have more conversations, Gwen, on the podcast. But, you know, I learned so much from you. I just got to end it with this. You know, you were on the Joint Committee on Finance, and you know, in Wisconsin, that's like appropriations, ways and means, and budget all put together. And I was just getting on the committee, and you were, the only word I can use is amazing. I watched you and your staff, and you were a well-oiled machine. And when you needed to drink some water and take a little break, that's when I would fill in. But you were doing the fight. And we had 4 of us, Democrats, and 12 Republicans when we were deep in the minority. And you always punched above the weight class. And I just learned so much from you doing that. And now, you know, I'm so glad to be on Approps and doing the same thing. You're on Ways and Means, which is so crucial. It's the very first committee that we had in Congress. And, you know, I just want to say it's such a pleasure to work with you every single day, Gwen.
Love you much. To be continued.
Yes. Well, thanks, everybody.
The struggle continues.
The struggle continues. Fight back. October 18th, No King's Day. And thanks so much for listening to this week's With Liberty and Justice for Some.